Hey, what's up, guys? Coach Daniel here for Mindset Monday episode. I'm not sure, forgot, but man, I'm not stopping doing this. It's definitely a passion project of mine. It's just coming with a little bit of pressure in terms of I really want to do a good job, and I put a lot of pressure on myself all the time. So I think a lot of us might relate to that, but the more I work within myself in personal development, the more I realize that it's about taking chances and taking action over overthinking situations and trying to make it perfect. So by no means is this going to be perfect, and I'm okay with that. But hopefully it's helping someone. It definitely helps me in terms of this information, helps me apply it to my daily life. And I do think that a lot of other people could benefit. So again, this is all learned information. I spend a whole lot of my time when I'm not coaching or building a gym or whatever that part of my life is, within personal development and like learning about things. So it's just stuff I'd learn and take, and then I know I mentioned that before, but there's a million ways to do something, and I just think that this stuff is a helpful, optimized way to do things, and it's definitely just my opinion, but it's opinion of experts in fields that I take this from. And so approach it with that, and then just think about what some pieces you could apply to your life and what could help you. So yeah, to get into this video, we're gonna go over 3 different kind of ways the brain thinks, and then how you could apply that into, for sure your daily life, because I'm trying on this one, it's for sure outside of the gym type thinking. So we'll talk about intuition, and then instincts, and then your intellect. So 3 different parts of the brain there that work at different points. So we all have intuition within us. We all have instincts, and we're instinctive, and we all have an intellect in us because we all learn. So we'll start with intuition. I'm going to read it, kind of what I wrote, so that I can lay it out a little better than me just trying to ramble. But intuition is going to be what ought to be done. You can also look at it as how you do anything is how you do everything. There was a time in my life where I thought that statement was kind of false because it couldn't apply to literally everything, but it does. If you're walking by the street and there's a piece of trash on the ground and you choose not to pick it up because it's not your problem, you don't clean the streets. It takes effort on you to go reach down and pick the piece of paper up. Not much effort, but you get what I'm saying. I think deep within, a lot of us have it in ourselves to be like, okay, I should pick that piece of paper up. Or you know what ought to be done and you just don't do it. And how you do anything is literally how you do everything. If there's a dish on the counter that is your wife's or your kid's, you could easily just wash it yourself, or you could let it pile up and be like, okay, this isn't my problem. I understand that there are other ways you've got to think about it here. If you're trying to teach your kids some lessons, having them wash it and having them not rely on you, of course. So let's not dig too deep into that. I'm just saying, are there times where you're being lazy or you're simply not doing something well when you should be doing it well? And when you get in the habit of being distracted, or you get in which we all are in that habit big time, but when we get into that habit of being distracted or being lazy, it just goes on into more of our life. It becomes something we naturally react and do. That's how we handle things, with laziness or with distraction. And a distracted mind for sure is a big problem, so I'll get into that in other videos. But think social media distraction. I'll let you play with that one on your own. Instinctive, that's another part of us, right? So it's the fight or flight within us. It's our instincts. But what the problem is, the instinctive mind rebels against your fears, and it chases comfort and repetition. So you can see how some of that might not be so good. It is good to have a fight or flight tendency, but some men, we've got to learn to fight in certain situations and not just flight. Certain people, in terms of when things get a little hard, they just want to run away. They don't want to deal with their emotions or deal with their feelings because they don't want to fight. And so it's their just natural tendency through learned habits, and it's not who you are, it's learned habits that you've learned, this all is, that you could change. And so if you don't like how you handle things and it doesn't serve you well, you stew in negativity, or you can't control your emotions, or your anger, then this is kind of some stuff where you can not accept that anymore and understand that it's under your control to change. So that fight or flight tendency, we're rebelling against our fears all the time. We're never actually handling them. We're just running away from them. Or we're going on the flip side of that, and we're just fighting it out all the time, and we're never actually stopping and listening, and we're using our ego to lead our life, and that also isn't good. So you see, this is all synergistic, but it all is balance also. There's yin and yang to it all. There's dark and light to it all, and you have to learn how to figure that part of it out, and that does require some mindfulness and some stopping and taking things in. So we don't want to rebel against all of our fears. We want to learn to use our fears, and we want to chase them, because that is where, on the other side of it, is growth, and that's change on the other side of it. So if you're doing something that you have fear with, you're going to learn something about yourself, and that's exciting. A lot of you watched that Climber movie, and I know I talked about this before. I forget the name of it, but the one where he goes and free solo. Free solos the mountain, right? He definitely has fear there the whole time, but he's built so much work in the matter that he's taken away the fear as much as possible, and he deals with it. So he faces it, and he learns something about himself. So the fear doesn't go away just because he climbed the mountain. It stays with him all the time, and he always has it. But he's practiced so well. He memorized the routes so well, all the holds, every single move of the entire thing he can write down with memorization, because he's created mastery within himself. And that is how he chases his fears, right? So he doesn't rebel against them. So think about ways you can do that, and think about mastery and how do you master anything. And that kind of starts with how you do anything is how you do everything. So if we do all the little pieces right, that's how we end up doing everything, right? So you can see kind of where that goes. So think about how just cows eat grass all day, right? They're happy out there, they're content just eating grass. They don't get bored of it, they do it their whole life. They don't say, hey, I want a Big Mac today, hey, I want pizza today. Think about what us humans do. We definitely don't do that. So we seek comfort and repetition, right? But there's a problem with that. If all we do is are comfortable, then we're never challenged, and we're never growing and learning from that. And if it's just constant repetition, that's good in some aspects. That's how you master some things. But you can see how if you get repetitive into running away from your fears and never dealing with your emotions, that simple repetition created a habit within yourself, and then you're never able to change. Especially if you don't have the mindset or the humility to change. And I'm going to talk about that in a minute. Intellectual, that side of us is just the learner. And that's in every single one of us. We have to learn to live in this life. It's mandatory. But the dangerous part of the intellect is we get sucked into things too much. And so you can see how this is a problem for some people that just focus on work and making money, and then the other parts of their life get overlooked because they think they're leading by example by making a living for themselves and being able to purchase things for their family, but they're missing out on the love, and they're missing out on the day-to-day and the purpose within the moment. So you got to be careful with the intellect part of you, because you can get sucked in, and you don't want to just learn constantly, because then you're never applying, meaning you're never growing from what you're learning. You can't just learn all day long, and this is something that I had to really pay attention to, is because I really like to learn things, but then where does my application come into play? And this starts with creating rituals and learning how to create habits, and it takes practice and work, and it's uncomfortable, and that's okay. That's how you change. So just to go over all those three real quick: be intellectual, but apply what you learn. Be instinctive, but don't seek comfort. There's no growth there, or purpose, or challenge. Be intuitive, but do what ought to be done as often as you can. Understand we're humans, and we're not always going to be able to stay right on top of all this. But anytime you get off track, all you got to do is set your intention back on track. More attention on your intention, and then you're good to go. And be easy on yourself. It's okay if you mess up. That's how you learn. There's three things here to boil this all down: is humble yourself. And this goes into each piece of those different parts of the brain, the intuitive part, the instinctive part, and the intellect part. You have to stay humble, and you have to understand that the way you learn things and your thoughts and your emotions aren't always the correct way, and that's okay. You can humble yourself enough to where you humble your ego, literally. And so the way you learn something might not be the optimal way. It might not be the right way. It might not be the best way. And even if it is, here's the big challenge. Even if you are right and you're arguing with someone, what can you learn from that situation? You could take that approach and humble yourself enough to, instead of fight with that person and try to get them to see your way, huge problem of mine, humble yourself enough to think about what you can learn in the situation. And that doesn't mean you give up on the right way or the most optimal way that you believe. And even if it does help them, you have to let them find that out, and they have to be the hero in their story. And you have to humble yourself enough to learn from the situation and learn what you can do to help them see it your way. And there's nothing wrong with that. Obedience is another one. We don't like being obedient, especially if it's like working for the man, or situations where you're just chasing comfort all the time. So you're working 9 to 5 and you're having to listen to someone tell you what to do. A lot of us don't like that. Some people do. But being obedient just means serving someone else. And there's nothing wrong with that either. Especially in relationships. You being able to serve your partner will in turn get you what you need out of the relationship. Because if you're serving them, they'll in turn want to serve you better. Especially if you guys work on your communication. And so think about being obedient, and this could even go as far into as humans in general. So treat everyone the same, and then it can go into the earth. If you like believing that we're here on this earth, and we serve it. It doesn't serve us. We serve the earth. It's a home that we're on, but it's not ours. So that goes into a whole lot of different areas, and I'm not against anything there. So interpret that how you want. I just mean to serve others, and I think that message comes across in all different types of philosophies and religions even. So last thing is going to be responsiveness. This is the most important part to a lot of this stuff, is being responsive. That means taking action. That means not seeking comfort. That means challenging yourself and following through with the things you learn. Without doing any of that, without taking it upon yourself to serve others, without taking the action, you get nowhere. So think of ways you can take action in your life, humble yourself, and be obedient to others, and see where that gets you. It's definitely helping me, for sure. And this is just something I barely started in my life. Remember, this is a big, long process that you have to work on every single day and every single moment, and that you're human, and it's okay to mess up. Thanks, guys.